A common complaint after Season 8 was that Jon Snow was Targaryen for nothing. In a previous season, we found out that Jon's mother was Lyanna Stark, Ned Stark's sister, and Ned was not Jon's father at all. Jon's real father was Rhaegar Targaryen. Rhaegar and Lyanna were wed, which means Jon isn't a bastard, he's not a Snow, he's a Targaryen. But for many people, by the end of the series, that Targaryen name, it amounted to nothing. But is that true? Was Jon a Targaryen for nothing? Before we get into it, the business. Consider supporting this channel on Patreon or becoming a channel member. Memberships go for as little as $1 a month. You get early access to videos, sneak peeks, exclusive content. At the $3 level, I'm exploring books outside of the A Song of Ice and Fire series. So if you're interested, check me out over there. But if you don't want to, or you can't, then all I ask is that you like this video, leave a comment, subscribe, and ring that bell. Those small things really help out the growth of the channel. Now with that being said, let's get into it. For all of Jon's life, he believed he was a bastard with no name or claim to fame. He would never inherit the title of Lord of Winterfell, something deep down he really wanted, even though that put him in conflict with his brother Robb. Or, as we know now, Cousin Robb. Also, as we know now, Corpse Robb. Because as a kid, you grow up wanting to do great things, and one great thing a person can do in Westeros is grow up to be Lord or Lady of their own castle. A title, lands. Deep down, it was something Jon aspired to, even though he knew that put him in direct conflict with his brother Robb, because Robb, as the eldest son of Eddard Stark, the eldest trueborn son, that title of Lord of Winterfell and the sword Ice belonged to him. So there's Jon, who has no name but the name Snow, who of course loves his brother, loves his family, would never ever try to be a usurper, but still, there's that deep ache inside, the human heart in conflict with itself. And so because he thought he was a bastard with nothing going for himself, and also because Catelyn Stark was literally living as his evil stepmother, like something out of a gosh darn fairy tale, Jon decided to go to the Wall, where anyone could rise in the ranks, no matter what your background may be. You could even become Lord Commander, even if your name was Snow, or Sand, or Flowers. But Jon isn't a bastard. As we find out in the later seasons, Jon is a Targaryen, a trueborn Targaryen, which means if he ever became king, he'd be Lord of all the 7 kingdoms. So when Robb says, "You can't be Lord of Winterfell, you're a bastard," actually, Robb, that castle, these lands, they belong to Jon. And you can't be Lord of anything because you're now dead as hell. How about that? Why am I bullying a dead man? Anyway, Sam, going through the annals of the Citadel, finds out that Prince Rhaegar annulled his marriage to Elia Martell, which is so very silly. The prince having an annulment and no one finding out? We'll move past it. Sam finds out that Rhaegar had his first marriage annulled so that he could marry Lyanna Stark, and then in the Tower of Joy, where they were, ruckin', Lyanna gave birth to a little baby boy, and that baby boy was Jon. Or, as Lyanna wanted him to be named, Aegon Targaryen. Sam reads about this. Bran sees it for himself when he travels through the Rearwood with the three-eyed raven. We get to see young Ned Stark and the awesome Kingsguard battle with Arthur Dayne, no, now it ends. And then young Ned Stark goes into the Tower of Joy. Wait, hold on one second. Speaking of the Kingsguard battle, I remember backlash to that scene, not just because of the whole dual-wielding swords thing. I remember people getting upset that Howland Reed didn't use magic to save Ned Stark. It's never hinted in the books that's how it happened. I always imagined Howland Reed used like a what do you call it? A blow dart. I always imagined him using like a blow dart or some sort of other like sneaky weapon to save Ned. I never imagined him conjuring magic to stop Arthur Dayne. And the reason why Ned is kind of sad about it, not just because of the whole tragedy of everything, it's also because he didn't beat Arthur Dayne one-on-one. His friend had to step up behind Arthur and shank him to save him. And that's not very honorable, but you know what? There are no rules in a fight. If you're in a fight, do what you have to do to survive. Pull hair, scratch someone's eyes out, kick, punch. Remember, it's all in the mind. Do what you have to do to survive. Bite someone's throat out. Anyway, we're getting way off topic. So Ned Stark goes in the Tower of Joy. He finds Lyanna in her bed of blood, and then he finds baby Jon, or Aegon. We get the promise me Ned scene because Lyanna is afraid that Robert will kill Jon simply because he is a Targaryen. Not just any Targaryen, the son of his mortal enemy, Rhaegar. But you know what, Lyanna? If you were worried for your son's life, why would you give him a Targaryen name? Not only a Targaryen name, the name of Aegon the Conqueror, the one who brought them here to Westeros. You know what, Lyanna? Maybe it's a good idea you died, because in the later seasons, this is also revealed to Daenerys finally, that Jon is a Targaryen, and, they're the last two on Earth that we know of. And she's not happy about this, because as a male claimant to the Iron Throne with the name Targaryen, Jon is in the line of succession above her, and she wants to rule in her own right. But Daenerys has nothing to fear, because when it comes to the Iron Throne, Jon doesn't want it. He never has. Daenerys still feels that Jon, because he's so charismatic, people love him, that the realm will rally behind his claim and dismiss hers. She's afraid of being pushed to the side. So no matter how many times Jon says, I don't want it, I never have, and you're my queen, Dany still knows how politics works, and she's not wrong. Jon could be used politically for her rivals to move against her, and this is why Maester Aemon went to the Wall, because by swearing the vows to the Night's Watch, his claim to the Iron Throne was rendered null. There were people in the realm already conspiring for him to get the crown, and he was like, let me shut this down, I'm gonna go take the black. But Jon can't do that because the Night's Watch isn't really a thing anymore, and he's already done that. His watches ended after he died and was resurrected. But a real easy way to solve this problem, a way for Jon to demonstrate to Dany, he's devoted and she's his queen, why doesn't he just become one of her King's Guard? That would remove his claim to the Iron Throne, and it would show he was devoted to her cause. But in the end, Jon has to kill Daenerys because she becomes a tyrant queen, she burns down King's Landing, she becomes unreasonable. And so he has to stab her. And this is something that's going to totally happen in the books. After this kinslaying and queenslaying, Jon is exiled beyond the Wall as punishment, which renders his claim to the Iron Throne null and void. He's not king in the north or king in the south. He is the king beyond the Wall. And not even really, because he's never claimed that title. We'll have to wait for that sequel show with Jon, if it ever happens. And it won't, because it shouldn't. But does this mean Jon Snow was Targaryen for nothing? I will leave a timestamp down in the video for people to just jump to this point, because I did not mean to go on that rant. He never claimed the Iron Throne. He never married Dany. They didn't produce more Targaryen children. His dragon died. His last name seemed to have no real impact on the events of the final season, after we find out that he is Jon Targaryen. So was it for nothing? No, obviously not. For one simple reason. We only get Jon Snow if Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark go to the Tower of Joy and do what they did. If Rhaegar and Lyanna don't have that chance meeting on the Trident, if they don't run off together and get married, if they don't go to the Tower of Joy and get to Ruckin and make Jon, then we never have Jon Snow. And if we don't have Jon Snow, this story plays out completely different. Jon Snow did many things that led to the defeat of the others. He might not have dueled the Night King himself, but the fact that he arranged for so many things to come together for that battle, if he's not there, if he doesn't exist, those things don't happen. Arya was the one to kill the Night King, and that might have disappointed many people, but what was the reason why Arya went north in the first place? Hot Pie tells her that Jon Snow is king of the north. He won the Battle of the Bastards. And after that, Arya, she puts her hot pie down, the food, not the boy, and she goes north because she wants to see her brother. Now, if you listen to the whole video, I've pointed out many things in the story that did not make any sense, but this makes total sense because Needle is home. Her sword Needle represents home. It also represents Jon Snow because that was her first sword and it was given to her by Jon Snow. It was their parting gift. She hasn't seen him since he gave her Needle. Again, I am not trying to make excuses for why Dan and David had Arya kill the Night King. If that didn't satisfy you, I totally understand. All I'm pointing out is that Jon Snow, if he was not born, things play out a lot differently. Because Jon is a major reason for why Arya drops everything to go back to Winterfell. Rhaegar and Lyanna is the only way we get Jon Snow. And if Jon is not a Targaryen, a trueborn Targaryen, everything that happened between him and Daenerys doesn't happen. It doesn't play out like it did on the show. If Jon is just a bastard, a Snow, remember that scene in the Iron Throne, the last episode of the show. And by that I mean, if Jon Snow is just Ned Stark's bastard or someone else's bastard, if he's not a Targaryen, then what happens in that episode, the Iron Throne, doesn't work, because he doesn't have Targaryen blood. After Daenerys goes mad and burns down the city, she goes to the Red Keep. Jon, having decided to kill her, goes to the Red Keep as well, or what's left of the Red Keep. Except there's one thing blocking the door: Drogon. The only way Jon gets inside the Red Keep to get to Daenerys to carry out this deed is because Drogon smells he is Targaryen, blood of the dragon. It's his Targaryen blood that allows him access to the ruins of the Red Keep to kill the Mad Queen. One might say, why doesn't Arya kill Daenerys? Daenerys is in the throne room by herself. There are other ways to get in there besides the front door where Jon comes through. The castle is half destroyed. There are many other ways Arya could have gained entry. But remember, Jon told Arya to wait for him outside of the city. That was his signal to her to not get involved in this conflict. If he needed her, he would have asked for her. And Arya left the ruins to let Jon handle his business. Killing the Night King, he was everybody's enemy. He was the enemy of all living things. So for Arya to kill him, it might not feel satisfactory, but it still makes sense. The fight against the dead was everybody's fight. Someone has to put him down. Didn't really matter who, but this between Jon and Daenerys, it's very personal. It's family. It's a family affair. And after Jon talks to Tyrion, he decides he actually has to confront Daenerys. He doesn't decide to kill her until he realizes he can't change her mind. Arya and Tyrion make it very clear to Jon that Daenerys is a threat, but he doesn't decide to kill her until he realizes there's no bringing her back from where she's gone. But confronting Daenerys one-on-one, if he has to do it, it has to be him. It has to be by his hand. The man who passes the sentence should swing the sword. There is only one person that can confront Dany and, if necessary, kill her, and that's Jon Snow. Aegon Targaryen. Jon Targaryen. However you want to call it. In a rather dark and twisted way, Jon's blood did matter. His Targaryen heritage did matter, for the simple fact that if he was not Prince Rhaegar's son, he would have never got past Drogon. He would have never gotten that close to Daenerys. So Jon, in the end, he had the title, the castle, the lands, all the things he wanted, just not in the way he wanted it. It's very George R.R. Martin if you think about it, because Jon's situation is very reminiscent of Sansa's. Sansa wanted a life out of the songs and stories. She wanted to marry the prince. She wanted to go to King's Landing because things there would be ever so beautiful, only for her dream to become a nightmare. Jon, at the start of the story, he didn't want to be a bastard. He wanted to have a name, lands, title, a castle maybe. So he goes to the Night's Watch and he finds out that life there is not all it's cracked up to be. He wanted to be a ranger so bad, and then he goes on the Great Ranging Beyond the Wall, only to find out ranging is not as all cracked up to be. One of the reasons he came to the Wall is because he learned that in the Night's Watch, a man could rise in the ranks even to become Lord Commander. But then Jon becomes Lord Commander, and guess what? He finds out it's not all that it's cracked up to be. What happens when he becomes not Lord of Winterfell, but King in the North? He finds out it's not all that it's cracked up to be. And in the end, he finds out he does have a name, and not just any name. Targaryen. The House of the Dragon. And after spending his childhood playing with swords, saying, "I'm Prince Aemon the Dragon Knight," or "I'm the Young Dragon," Jon finds out he is a dragon. And guess what? It's not all that it's cracked up to be. We don't get this story if Jon doesn't travel down the road of first being a bastard and then discovering he's actually royal blood, a Targaryen, trueborn. And while it might not lead to him being king in the north or king in the south, the king of all of Westeros, sitting on the Iron Throne, married to Daenerys and riding a dragon, having children and restoring House Targaryen to its former glory, it might not have had an impact like that. I would argue, and I have, that it wasn't for nothing. Because if Rhaegar and Lyanna don't do what they did, we don't get Jon Snow. Period. And come to think about it, Ned would never cheat on Catelyn, so Jon could never be his actual bastard son. That would besmirch his honor, and Ned is nothing if not honorable. Ned being so honorable is a big clue that Jon is not his son, because if Ned is so honorable, why would he cheat on his wife? That's the neat part. He wouldn't. And that's how Martin points the reader in the direction of R+L=J. So if Ned didn't have Jon, whose bastard would Jon be? Brandon's, perhaps? We know that Brandon is totally capable of having fathered a bastard. But if Jon is not Ned's son, the whole thing with Jon being despised by Catelyn, that doesn't play out. Jon would not have much of a reason to want to leave Winterfell because Catelyn was a big factor in that. I hate to do the whole Marvel's what if version of Game of Thrones, but if Jon is not believed to be Ned Stark's bastard son, this story plays out completely different. I don't really see Jon Snow even going to the wall. We're writing a completely different story if Jon is not the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. We only get the Jon that we have because of them. So to say Jon was Targaryen for nothing doesn't make much sense, because without a Stark and a Targaryen, we would not have Jon. Period. And listen, I get it. Jon learning he's a Targaryen, that's the hidden heir trope. It's a staple of the fantasy genre, and we typically know how it's going to turn out. The story starts and we meet a dark-haired teenager. Maybe he lives on a farm. Maybe he has no parents. Maybe he has one. And his past, if he's an orphan or missing a parent, that part of his past is a mystery. Where did he come from? Who is he? Well, turns out he's a hidden heir to the throne. And in most cases, as the story goes along, before he learns who he really is, he learns a lot of life lessons, and these lessons will play a big part into why he would make a great king. He's learning how to fight, how to make allies, diplomacy. And then, once he levels up in experience, he becomes king. And it all fits because he learns at just the right time. But in this story, after Jon shares the truth, after he learns the truth, it doesn't work out. He doesn't become king. He doesn't get the queen. In fact, it's all the opposite. He doesn't want to be king, and he kills the queen. The place he would have ruled from, it's destroyed. The Red Keep is gone. King's Landing is gone. The Iron Throne is gone. It's all a mess, and you can say this is Dan and David Dumber and Dumber, but it really feels like George R.R. Martin, just before the end, doing one last dastardly deed. If you thought that Jon, at least Jon, would have a happy ending because he worked so hard, well, consider your expectations subverted. It's like with Ned Stark being beheaded in the first book, and then in the third book with the Red Wedding. You think all these things are going to happen, and Martin steps in to say no, that's not how the story works. So while Dan and David, they did botch the ending, I do think it does feel like this is Jon's ending. This is how it's supposed to be for him. This hidden heir didn't go anywhere, and you know what? That's okay, because the story still needed him in the end. But that's going to do it for the video. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you think. Was Jon Snow Targaryen for nothing? There is a lot of fun stuff over on Patreon and the channel membership side of things. This video came out early. People that support me over there see all of my stuff in advance. So yeah, this video is old to them, but new to you. But speaking of, thank you to the following supporters, including Philip E. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace. Damn it. Oh, I am so dumb for that. It's gonna kill me. I can't. That was a very goofy way of dying. Like, I saw it happening and I still let it happen. I don't even know.